Imagine doing everything right, reporting it to police, applying for a protection order, documenting the evidence, step by step, exactly what you're told to do when you feel unsafe. And then, in the early hours of 16 October 2020, the man she had reported to police broke into her bedroom. Her mother heard a noise. She ran in, but it was too late. Celeste Manno, 26, was not someone who ignored the warning signs. She was not weak. She did everything, but everything still wasn't enough. And the question this case raises is not why Celeste couldn't protect herself, it's why the system couldn't protect her.
Early Friday morning, 16th of October 2020, around 3 a.m. At the Manno family home in Mernda, a quiet suburb in Melbourne's north, Victoria, Aggie Manno was asleep when she heard a noise from her daughter's room. She jumped up, ran over, opened the door and saw her daughter, Celeste Manno, being attacked right there in her own bedroom. She tried to intervene, but it was too late, and everything she saw that night would stay with her for the rest of her life. An emergency call was made straight after. Victoria Police and an ambulance were immediately dispatched to the address in Mernda. When police arrived, they found Celeste Manno, 26, in her bedroom. She did not survive. The man who had broken into the house and caused her death had fled. Police immediately opened an urgent investigation. The entire house and surrounding area in Mernda was sealed off immediately. The crime scene examination team worked through the night, documenting every detail in the room where Celeste was found. Every surface, every item, every trace was collected and recorded under strict procedure. One thing was noted straight away. There was no sign of a complicated break-in. The offender knew the house, knew how to get in, knew which room was Celeste's. This was not a random break-in. Police also took Aggie Manno's statement at the scene, from a mother who had just witnessed directly what happened to her daughter. Celeste Manno's body was taken to a forensic facility for formal examination. The results confirmed. Celeste died from a direct attack, not an accident, not natural causes. The forensic findings also provided further important information for the investigation, including traces that could directly link the offender who broke into the house that night. Nothing in the forensic findings left any ambiguity about the nature of what happened, and nothing suggested Celeste could have caused the injuries to herself. Victoria Police's investigation moved quickly because from the very start they already had a name. Celeste Manno had reported a man who was obsessively pursuing and stalking her to police. That man was Luay Sako, a former colleague. A record of Sako's behavior was already on police files before this happened. Police tracked Sako down that same night. Sako was arrested within hours of fleeing the scene. When arrested, Sako denied every allegation. But the evidence at the scene, Aggie Manno's statement, and Sako's pattern of behavior over the preceding months all pointed in one direction. Luay Sako was charged over Celeste Manno's death. Celeste Manno, 26, lived with her family in Mernda, a quiet suburb in Melbourne's north. She worked in healthcare as a coordinator, a career she chose because she cared about others. This is the trait everyone who knew Celeste mentions when speaking about her. Her family described Celeste as cheerful, loving, and always putting others first. She was deeply close to her parents and brother. Family was the center of her life. Her mother, Aggie Manno, said, "My daughter was the best person I ever knew. She loved everyone around her." Her brother, Mark Manno, said, "My sister shouldn't have had to die just for turning someone down. Celeste did nothing wrong. She simply declined one man's advances, and that was the only reason she is no longer here." Luay Sako, 35 at the time, lived in Melbourne, Victoria. Sako and Celeste had once been colleagues at the same workplace. During that time, Sako developed feelings for Celeste. Celeste declined. That's when it began. There is no record of prior convictions for Sako before this incident. No recorded history of violence. To outsiders, he was an ordinary person. But to Celeste, he was the man who turned her life into months of fear. After Celeste rejected Sako's advances and cut off all contact, his behavior didn't stop. It escalated. Sako began sending Celeste hundreds of messages. She didn't reply. He kept going. He tracked her movements. He showed up at places she regularly went. This was not the behavior of someone hurting over unrequited feelings. This was controlling behavior. The behavior of someone who could not accept that another person had the right to say no. Celeste recognized the danger. She reported Sako's behavior to police. She did everything people say you're supposed to do when facing a situation like that. After reporting it to police, Celeste was granted an intervention order, a legal order prohibiting Sako from approaching or contacting her. In theory, this is the protective tool the legal system provides victims of stalking. But Sako breached that order, and the system did not respond fast enough, strongly enough, to stop what was coming. In the early hours of the 16th of October 2020, Sako broke into the Manno family home in Mernda, where Celeste was asleep, and did what no order had managed to stop him from doing. Aggie Manno later said, "My daughter did everything right. She reported it to police. She applied for a protection order. But the system failed my daughter." At the police station, Luay Sako was formally questioned about Celeste Manno's death. He denied every allegation. No specific details of the interview have been made public. But whatever Sako said, or didn't say, didn't change what the evidence had already recorded. Aggie Manno's statement, from someone who was at the scene and witnessed it directly, was one of the most important pieces of evidence police had. Combined with Sako's pattern of behavior in the months before the incident, the messages, the breaches of the intervention order, the times Celeste reported him to police, the picture of what happened became undeniably clear. The case file on Celeste Manno was built from multiple layers of evidence. First, direct witness testimony. Aggie Manno was at the scene and witnessed what happened directly. Her statement was the foundation of the case. Second, Sako's pattern of behavior. Hundreds of messages, instances of stalking, breaches of the intervention order, the times Celeste reported him to police, all recorded as evidence of systematic, deliberate behavior. Third, the forensic findings. Confirming the nature of what happened, ruling out entirely any possibility of accident or self-inflicted injury. Fourth, physical evidence from the scene. Traces collected at the house in Mernda directly linked Sako to the incident. When all this evidence was placed together, there was no gap left to deny. The case was referred to the Office of Public Prosecutions, Victoria. The Office of Public Prosecutions, Victoria, charged Luay Sako over Celeste Manno's death. Sako continued to maintain his innocence, forcing the case to a full contested trial at the Supreme Court of Victoria. At trial, the prosecution built its case on the full record, the prolonged stalking behavior, the breach of the intervention order, and the act of breaking into Celeste's home on the night of 16th October 2020. The prosecution argued clearly Sako could not accept Celeste's rejection, and he acted deliberately that night. The defense failed to raise reasonable doubt against the overwhelming evidence presented by the prosecution. Aggie Manno's testimony before the jury, from a mother who had witnessed it directly, was one of the most heartbreaking moments of the trial. The jury returned its verdict. Luay Sako, guilty. Justice Coghlan handed down the sentence at the Supreme Court of Victoria. Luay Sako was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of 36 years. He will not be eligible for release before 2057. In his sentencing remarks, the judge found this was a deliberate act by a man who could not accept rejection, and the sentence handed down reflected the seriousness of what happened. The 36-year non-parole sentence is one of the highest ever handed down in Victoria. Outside the court, Aggie Manno said, "I will fight to make sure no other woman suffers the fate Celeste did." The Celeste Manno case is not a story about someone who appeared out of nowhere, unknown to anyone. It is a story about a man the system knew about, and a woman who did everything right to protect herself. But the system still wasn't enough to protect her. The first thing worth reflecting on: stalking behavior is not taken seriously enough. Celeste reported it to police. She applied for an intervention order. Sako breached that order, but was not dealt with seriously enough to stop him continuing. This is not unique to this case. Across Australia, stalking behaviour is often downplayed until it escalates into something that can never be undone. Research shows stalking is one of the strongest predictors of relationship violence, particularly of the most serious cases. The second thing worth reflecting on: an intervention order is just a piece of paper. An intervention order carries legal weight, but it has no physical power to stop someone determined to breach it. The question the system needs to answer isn't, is that piece of paper valid? It's, what do we do when someone breaches it? In Celeste's case, the answer to that question came too late. The third thing worth reflecting on: victims are left to protect themselves. Celeste did everything right. She reported it to police. She applied for a protection order. She tried to stay away from Sako. But the burden of protecting herself fell entirely on her shoulders, not on the system responsible for intervening. And this is not an accusation against any individual. It is evidence that even when someone does everything right, the system can still fail to protect them. This is not an accusation against any individual. It is a reminder that the system, however well-intentioned, still has dangerous gaps that need to be filled. The Celeste Manno case leaves lessons not just for people in similar situations, but for all of us. The first lesson: stalking is a crime, not love. Sako sent hundreds of messages, tracked Celeste, showed up at places she went. He may have called those actions love, but they weren't. This is controlling behavior, and control is not love. If you or someone you know is going through something similar, this is not normal and should not be accepted. The second lesson: report early and keep reporting. Celeste reported it to police, and that was the right thing to do. If you feel unsafe because of someone's behavior, report it to police. Document the evidence. Tell your loved ones. And if the behavior continues, keep reporting it. Every report builds a record, and that record matters. The third lesson: the community around us has a responsibility too. If you know someone stalking another person, don't stay silent. Don't think that's their business. That behavior can escalate, and your silence can be the gap tragedy happens in. Celeste Manno died at 26. Her mother, Aggie, is still fighting to make sure no other woman suffers the fate her daughter did. And the best way to remember Celeste is to make sure her story doesn't repeat. If you or someone you know needs support, call now. In Australia, emergency 000. 24/7 domestic violence support 1800. Respect on 1800 737732. Crisis mental health support Lifeline on 131114. Crime Files. AU produces this content for the purpose of informing and educating the community. We condemn all forms of violence. All information presented is based on court records and verified news sources. Thank you for staying with me through this whole video. I know this isn't easy content to watch, but it's a story that needs telling, and I really appreciate you sticking around to the end. It's already the weekend, so I hope you're having some peaceful moments with your family and loved ones. Cherish those moments, because not everyone still gets the chance to have days like that. And I want to ask you something small. Tomorrow is Sunday. What's the first thing you'll do when you wake up Sunday morning? Breakfast with family? A walk? Or just staying in bed a little longer? Leave your answer in the comments. I read all of them, and I'd love to hear about your Sunday. Wishing you a warm and peaceful weekend. See you in the next video.